welcome back to Bug Proletariat 40K. I know it's been a couple weeks since I did my last video. I was just kind of taking a break from 40K. I didn't have an event really that soon after that RTT that I played in a couple weeks ago. So I've been playing some Marvel Crisis Protocol and some Star Wars Legion. Awesome games. If anybody likes those as well, let me know in the comments and I can definitely cover some stuff on the channel here for those games. It's kind of what I play when 40K gets a little out of control or I'm a little burnt out on it. It's just a nice take a couple week break away from it. And it was definitely out of control with the Tyranids for a little bit. I haven't played since their FAQ came out from GW, which is awesome. It came out 2 weeks later and toned it down. So we'll see how much it gets toned down. The tournament results look like not too much is toned down, but I don't know if that's from all the best players already switched to Tyranids and they're just going to make it work. Still Harlequins are still doing really well, and then Eldar are definitely doing awesome. Which I'm actually cool with Eldar doing well. That's a hard to play army. It's kind of like Genestealer Cult. It's not that tough, and things can go real bad. Now that they took away that indirect fire spam ridiculousness that Eldar players could play. But this week, I'm going to cover some unit review on Purestrain Genestealers. I did one a few weeks ago on Aberrants, and I thought Aberrants were really good, and I was going to kind of go that way of the 30 or 20 Aberrant Bladed Cog list. And then before I had the chance, unfortunately, the balance data slate came out with Armor of Contempt, and now they have the rumors of, I guess not rumors, GW said it directly, that you're going to have to start with less CP. And that kind of makes me wary about playing the Bladed Cog 30 Aberrants, although I still think it's very good and people are doing very well with it. It's definitely a viable option. I just think Armor of Contempt really hurts it, and I'm worried about its future. AP1 on those Aberrant attacks feels real bad. Actually, as you can see, some of the pictures I played with 10 Aberrants in my Twisted Helix list, and while they're extremely tough, even without the 5-up invuln, just felt bad playing into the Armor of Contempt factions. They didn't hit above their weight class, and I just think Acolytes with melee mining weapons can get the job done just as easy and die, but there'll be a lot more of them, so I think it's a good trade-off. So I've fully moved into, after the balanced data slate, and even at one event before, playing Twisted Helix with 30 Purestrain Genestealers, and I just can't say how much I love these dudes on the table. 30 of them provide you with just so many attacks, so much speed. Your opponent really has to worry about them almost no matter where they are on the battlefield. And then they have to worry about the buffs that you can give them with the +1 attack. The auto wounding on 6s from the Twisted Helix power is amazing. So I just wanted to break this unit down a little bit. This video is going to specifically be about Purestrain Genestealers in Twisted Helix. I think they're still valuable in other cults. I played them in Pauper Princes when I was playing that at the beginning of the year, and I liked them a lot. I'd really just take one unit of 10 if you're not playing Twisted Helix and give them the move after blip upgrade, just to have something fast and go out there that they'll be 150 points, but you really don't mind throwing them out there if your opponent doesn't screen correctly, or even they can get in somewhere where if there's a big ruin that has blocked walls, they can hide in there and then create this kind of denial bubble that your opponent doesn't want to go near, or they're going to take 50 with a psychic power Genestealer attacks to the face. But playing them in Twisted Helix, you're already getting the bonus of +1 strength and +1 to their movement. So becoming movement 9 with advance and charge is awesome. It gives them a gigantic threat range. There's also the 1 CP strat to have them auto advance 6. So they're moving 9 with the auto advance 6 strat. They can move 15 and still charge. So you figure a 7-inch charge, you're looking at like a 22-inch threat range, and that's just with the average charge. Although as probably plenty of us know, you're not always going to roll that 7-inch charge, so get as close as you can to your opponent's models. The +1 strength is also really clutch now with the Armor of Contempt's meta coming out, I guess we'll call it, although they're not really the armies that are winning, but there's definitely a lot of Armor of Contempt's armies out in the meta. The AP doesn't go as far as it used to, and strength 4 on Purestrains really hurts. I know this from my own experience playing them as Pauper Princes. Always hitting on 2s, even if your opponent has minuses to hit, was actually pretty good on them. A lot of people feel like Gene Stealers are wasted in Pauper Princes, but there are a lot of situations that you run into where you're going to be at -1 to hit, and that Pauper Prince's +1 really helps out. Unfortunately, it's just not as good now as the +1 strength, because yeah, you could be at -1 to hit and hitting on 3s, but then you're wounding on 3s and the math kind of works out. And with that Armor of Contempt out there, which as you can see is the next bullet, you're still going to be hitting at AP2 against things with Armor of Contempt and AP3 and everything else, which is a perfect, breaking point for how many attacks you're going to have into a unit of Primaris Marines or Vanguard Vets or whatever you're charging these days that an Army of Contempt's army might have against you. So the reason I take 30 is Gene Stealer Cult, the way I've been playing my Twisted Helix is all about having more pieces on the board that can trade into my opponents than they do. It's worked pretty well, especially into Marines. It worked really, really well against the Grey Knights because they did not have a lot on the table. I haven't played in the new meta after the balanced data sheet into Tau. I haven't played into Eldar in the tournament. I haven't played into... I played into new Nids. I lost that one by like 20 points. That was a rough game. But it definitely wasn't the Gene Stealer's fault. They did really, really well. So I take 30 because how fast they are and how many attacks they get, your opponent really, really worries about them. I played a Blood Angel player with 20-some Sanguinary Guard now with Armor of Contempt, which they're awesome. They move fast, they have really high armor saves. And then with the Armor of Contempt, the armor saves is even better. But he knew if he throws his Sanguinary Guard out there, and this is actually what happened in the game, he's just going to get charged by either Acolytes and Gene Stealers, 2 units of Gene Stealers, and they're going to get wiped out. And he only has those 3 units of Sanguinary Guard when I have 3 units of Gene Stealers plus all my other stuff, Acolytes with drills. In that game it was 10 Aberrants, and maybe you have some Ridge Runner fire, some truck fire to go into them as well. So you just couldn't trade effectively into the 140 point Gene Stealer units that are always going to be hanging out in ruins, just ready to charge out and pop out when it's advantageous to me as the Gene Stealer Cult player. And that kind of goes into the last bullet there, the psychology of the Gene Stealers. Some games, just the threat of them hanging out, I'm not sure if your local meta uses player place terrain with like closed walls, but ours does on one big ruin in the table. And just putting 10 or 20 Gene Stealers in there, usually I like to put the character that has Focus Adoration with them so they can heroically intervene out of the building if it's a like Tau guard or something that wants to come take an objective that I put near that building. It just creates a denial zone basically for your opponent, knowing if you come in within roughly 20 inches of this ruin, you're going to get it from 20 Gene Stealers, and not a lot of people want to do that. And I feel like people respect them too a lot more than maybe they should, I guess. I mean, a charge from Purestrains with 40 or 50 attacks is no joke, but sometimes it just doesn't do as much as your opponent's thinking, but just the thought of that they're a real threat and they could spike and hurt anything that I put out there has helped me in a bunch of games. I'd say almost every single game. Even against the Tyranid game where I lost, my opponent took 2 to the last on a unit of 9 Tyranid warriors, and even fully buff with their Catalyst and their 4-up invulnerable save. 10 Gene Stealers with 50 attacks going in, still took out a few of them, and then that really made him rethink his plans of throwing that Tyranid warrior brick in the center of the table, because after I charged him with my Gene Stealers that had the pregame move, that warrior squad wasn't looking so hot anymore to hang out and hold the center objective. So I'm sure a lot of you have already played Purestrains, but I would give 30 a try if you have it, 20. Definitely one with the upgrade to pregame move out of the blip. And the Twisted Helix, I think they're just amazing, and that is really the cult that they shine the most in, and you're going to get the most work out of them. Now for some of the downsides for Purestrains. Everything in this codex it's such an awesome codex to play because everything is like this. While it has this super upside of they're so fast, they have so many attacks, they do have the downside of they're still just a T4 model with a 4-up invulnerable save. And sometimes you can pass a bunch of those 4-ups, and sometimes those 4-ups are not going to be there when you need it, and a unit's going to melt. So some things that have helped me keep these alive, obviously use terrain. Don't put these out in the center of the table and expect them to survive any type of shooting phase at all from your opponent. But look for opportunities to charge units that are on their own, where you can use a return to the shadow strat. After the Purestrains kill them, they probably have a good chance to kill almost any unit out there. 1 CP, you can pick the Purestrains up, put them back into Deep Strike, and they do have to come in the next turn outside of 9 of opponents, but I won't use this to try and get a 9-inch charge off. That's a little too risky, unless you need some type of Hail Mary play to win you the game. I put them back in my back lines behind line of sight terrain, and now that turn they're not going to do anything that they come back in, but that next turn I've got 10 Gene Stealers primed and ready to go back out to fight something else again. A great example of this was I was playing a guard player in a tournament who obviously wanted to come nowhere near my 30 Gene Stealers, but he still had to come hold objectives, and he was doing a pretty good job of throwing guard squads out one at a time, moving, just with more OBSEC to take away some primary from me. But unfortunately, every time a Gene Stealer unit charged a unit of 10 guardsmen, obviously those guardsmen are dead, and then they go back to Return of the Shadows and can rinse and repeat. While I only had 3 Purestrain units, it turned into feeling like I had 6 of those units throughout the game because they kept charging, going back into reserves, and priming themselves for that next turn. Some other things you can do is, if you are taking aberrants and you have some Gene Stealers that do need to be out in the open for whatever reason, on an objective to hold, maybe there's just no line of sight blocking terrain the way it's been set up, where you could get good charges off, use that Lurk in the Shadows, the strat for 2 CP, so they can't be targeted unless they're the closest, and just make sure that there's nothing, there's something closer that's tougher. Aberrants are great because they can also use a strat, all that's costing you 4 CP at that point, to have the 4-up, oh man, what is it called? Not feeling no pain. Anyway, the 4-up, they can't be wounded on better than a 4-up. Transhuman, that's what it is, nailed it. And then, or trucks, I've also used throwing some rock grinders out there, and then your opponent has to shoot the rock grinders first. Depending on what your opponent's army has, maybe like a Hail of Doom Eldar list really doesn't want to be shooting at rock grinders. They want to be shooting at those Purestrains. So there's just a couple ways you can keep the Purestrains safe. And if you guys have any other ideas how to keep these guys safe on the battlefield so they can deliver those, killing blows, definitely put it down in the comments and let me know. So that was just a quick overview of why I think the Purestrain Gene Stealers are in a really good spot currently in the meta to be a staple in any Twisted Helix list, and at least one unit in any Gene Stealer Cults list with that pregame move from the blip. My next event is going to be the Maryland Open on June 18th and 19th at Tables and Towers. Looks like they were trying to make it a super major, just the numbers weren't going to work out, so they knocked it down to 6 rounds in 2 days, so it'll be a major. I think there's roughly 80 people signed up right now. The last RTT I went to, only 10 people were there, so I don't know if people were getting a little tired of the meta with the Tyranids, Harlequins, ridiculousness, but with 80 people signed up, 70, 75 will be there. So it looks like some of the balanced data slate and the FAQ from Tyranids is, made people interested again, which is good. We'll see how it goes. I expect there to be a ton of Armor of Contempt factions. I know last year in a GT I played 5 rounds. I played all Space Marines all 5 rounds. For whatever reason, there's a ton of Space Marine players in this meta. And even when they were, bad, people were still playing them through the Harlequins ridiculous days, just because that's the army a lot of people seem to have around here. And I love Gene Stealers into Armor of Contempt Marine, so I like my chances there. Gene Stealers into Harlequins, I would have said before when they had the 9 Void Weavers was, you're losing, you're not winning that game. But now that a lot of people are switching to more troops, Gene Stealers fight really, really well in the troops. They kind of just don't care about a lot of the stuff the Harlequin's defensive buffs can do. I mean, they can get the 3-up invulnerable save, but we have so many attacks, we can get around that. You have the -1 to wound, but we're already going to be wounding you on 4s, and we can get the 6's auto wounds on the hits from the Twisted Helix power, which is huge. So I like that more than I did before, for sure, but it'll absolutely be a tough game, because Harlequins do also have the same kind of tools, the fast movement, a lot of attacks to kill G-Sealers and your other stuff that's just not that tough on the table. Eldar is probably not a great matchup. The indirect is gone, which is huge. It's just all of the extra movement they're going to get and the assault weapons. The Bladestorm stuff is real bad for Genestealers and basically all Genestealer cult models. So I feel like that's going to be a game of hiding and trading and trying to score better on secondaries than your opponent. Then Tau, I just really, really don't like. I haven't had too many games into them, but just the Crisis suits are still really, really good. If they have better Overwatch, that's not great, but you can turn that off with powers, so it's not the end of the world. It's definitely a better matchup than it was before. Maybe I'm just more down and negative on it because I haven't played too many Tau matchups, and I just feel kind of wary going into that. So we'll see what happens at the Maryland Open. I'm sure I'll do a video to cover it and see how I placed, and I'll definitely post over on the Facebook page the day of the event and kind of see how I'm doing and post how my games have been going. Thanks for listening, everybody, and feel free to like and subscribe to the channel, and comment below if you have any more thoughts on Purestrains or how they've been going for you if you've been using them in the new Armor of Contempt meta. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to Bug Proletariat 40K.